idle SCV or idle worker there. Oh, lurkers coming in very close. Munoz also Scourge in position. They don't really have anything to kill at this point, but we're going to see what the Fatness actually try to break out of this, because if he tries to engage those lurkers first, he's going to have those lurkers to deal with, and behind that a lot of forces. Or is Hyuk'ed actually going to move it, actually transitioning himself a little bit closer with those lurkers, trying to move it just a little bit closer, inch himself into a slightly better position, spread his lurkers out, so that Fantasy tries to run is going to find himself being hit quite a bit. Fantasy kind of like staying outside of his bridge, trying to reinforce that. Nidus Canals, meanwhile, on the way for Hyuk'ed. He wants to get some Nidus Canals down there, the roll right in position the second he can. Siege tanks coming in from Fantasy. Not quite sure whether they have Siege mode yet or not, but as soon as that pops in, we're going to see the Science Vessel come out, try to engage those lurkers, but I think the Scourge are also going to be in position, so that Science is going to be in significant amount of danger. Siege going to scan, siege up, scan going to come off, so some of those lurkers going to be forced back, and Fantasy also going to stim up his force and force these forces back. Scourge flying are actually going to get picked off, so any Science will come out will not find himself too heavily threatened, but at the very least the contain broken now, so Hyuk'ed going to be forced to run a little bit back to the right side. Going to have to defend whatever base that is the Fantasy decides to attack. Final has some Nidus Canals here at the right, low right-hand position, so he's going to be able to reinforce that when the time comes. Also, should be working on the Defiler mount fairly soon. Initial Science Vessel, meanwhile, out there for Fantasy as he works on his second factory right now to get some more siege tanks going. And finally, going to get some Vulture prey on the way as well, so he can get some mines out there, know the position on the map. Oh yeah, a cup of tea, that's what you need. That is what you need, my friend. Finally, some Defilers out there. Zerglings and Defilers at the Natural Expo. Get the Consume going, get those Darkstorm going, so he's going to be able to defend any bases. Fantasy actually moving to the right side of the map, going to get one of his Marines caught by those Lurkers, but I think with the way the position is right now, I think Hyuk'ed's going to be able to defend himself fairly well. Has that third base going. And mines out there for vultures as well, so they can kind of protect some of their own forces as well, as long as they don't get dragged too heavily into. SCV actually go into the 9 o'clock position where the Zergling is going to be able to meet and greet it, say hi. And when I say hi, I mean a claw in your face. Not the best of highs. It's kind of like a failed high five, only the Zerg is actually not trying to high five you, but kill you. Hyuk'ed actually moved to the right side, burning his Orcus down, going to lose the initial one, but actually going to manage to get some decent kills off. Gets a Dark Swarm up as well. A little bit late in that, but still not quite close enough. The Dark Swarm, another Dark Swarm here, trying to get some Lurkers close to the tanks. Tank's going to start unsieging. And Fantasy going to be forced to split some more forces off, but still great unsiege, just on time, managing to actually save all of his tanks. And Hyuk'ed's push out there was, I feel, a little bit reckless, a little bit unnecessary, trying to do the damage, trying to push Fantasy, back. But now the Muto's coming out, going to catch one of those tanks out in the open. And very few Marines here at this point to engage. The Mutos have free reign. Funny come back in the paint, but oh my god, a Radiant comes in, and no split from Hyuk'ed. Heavily damaged Mutos at this point. They can't stay in this. Gotta go out there and recuperate for a minute or 5 before they get back into the game. Fantasy, meanwhile, being safe enough to add in an additional wow. Tongue twistage. Anyway, adding an additional barracks and E-base, who's going to be working on additional upgrades, going to get to that 1-2 position where he's going to feel comfortable. Hyuk'ed, meanwhile, going to work on additional defenses at the lower end position while also getting that Natural Expo going. And if you allow a Zerg player to get on those 4 gas bases without doing any economic harassment, you're going to be in trouble. Because Fantasy moving out there, a lot of Science Vessels out there, decent ball of Medic Marines, and has tanks to support as well. And finally working on some Vultures, going to go heavy on the Vultures. Probably not going to be seeing a transition into mech like we see some Terran players do these days, like Midas, for instance, did against Effort. But still going to work on some mech forces additionally, have some Vultures out there, picking off an Overlord as well, and start working across the map, maybe try to deny any additional base from Hyuk'ed, make sure that 3 o'clock position doesn't go down. But meanwhile, also going to be able to safely pick up his own 3rd base at the 9, while Hyuk'ed going to be able to get his natural expansion at the lower right-hand base going. So he's going to be on 4 bases as soon as he gets that saturated. Has a few Lurkers and Mutos flying around. So Nidus Canal's close by as well. Just has to get a Nidus Canal at that natural position going. Has forces all over the place with the followers waiting around just to make sure they're safe. Whoa, look at that mine go. Look at that mine go. And dud. But other mines that actually did the job. 2 Zerglings creating out 3 mines. That's not bad, though. Kind of opening up the position for himself a little bit. Lurkers dying due to irradiate here at the lower right hand natural. Some more Lurkers going in to replace them. Scan going to come off. No siege tanks there though, but the Sciences will come in here Hello, my friend. Can I radiate you? Yes, I can. Fly away. Scourge coming in. They're not going to be able to assassinate anything here. Or, yes, they are, actually. Fantasy, not at all being careful with that science. Instead of moving it a little bit further to the left, above his medic marines, decide to leave it out in the open where he gets picked off. Hyuk reading that completely and making sure that, you know, there's not too many sciences for him to deal with. Now, it does seem, however, that Fantasy going to go for this attack here. Has Sciences to support. Very few lurkers. Not much at all here for Hyuk. Gonna irradiate those Mutalisks. No spread from Hyuk. Mutalisk going to be no threat whatsoever. Oh my god, look at those Mutalisks die. One Dark Swarm comes off. Irradiate goes off on the Defile, but the Marine is still in position to do the damage here. Hyuk gonna look like he's in a secret amount of trouble. Does some nice blocking with the Medics. Fantasy gonna be able to take this hatchery down. Hyuk being forced to use Hydras here from the back alongside the Lurkers, so it might clear this up, but it doesn't matter. Fantasy is just going to try to retreat, run back home with as many of these as he can. Did a great job there picking off that hatchery. This really huge boon for him in this game. Meanwhile, just macroing out like crazy. Those Marines out there. Hydra's not the best thing to have against Medic Marines here. Zerglings and Defilers to support. All those Defilers getting irradiated just at the right time. And overall, Fantasy doing a great job picking that base off and clearing himself up for the retreat, making sure that 9 o'clock position does not come up while he has himself working on 3 bases and Hyuk now working on 3 as well. That natural expansion lower right hand, it's so critical, not managing to defend that. Fantasy with 2 control groups of Medic Marines just running in and picking stuff up. Now we can move across the map, facing a lot of Hydras. Hydras, of course, atrocious against Medic Marines. Medic Marines just rip through them like hiding up their bother. Hyuk gonna try to working here at the natural expansion at the lower right hand yet again. Bunch of tanks out there for Fantasy though. And those Hydras, despite having carry pistol upgrades, not in the best of position to do much. Some of these cracklings gonna try to come in close. They're gonna get ripped to pieces. Some lurkers here, but the Science is spotting them out. Tanks, sieging everything. Some Zerglings still fighting on, trying to get something on, trying to get some Dark Swarms out there. Medic Marines with 2-2 upgrades. Nice plague on those Medic Marines though, all red and shiny. But I think the siege tanks are going to be able to finish the job. Anything that comes close, the Medic Marines are going to help out. Dark Swarms on top of that, but still not good enough. Everything under those Dark Swarms goes down. And now Hyuk just trying to get a few forces out there, but they're just running out piecemeal instead of him consolidating a Zergling force and try to run in with some Dark Swarm support. Just not in the best of position. That's hatchery, just as it comes up, is going to go down yet again. Nothing here for Hyuk at all. He's going to lose that, and Fantasy might actually manage to run up the ramp now and pick off the lower right-hand position, the main here. And if he does that, that's going to be it. That's going to be death for Hyuk. Fantasy, meanwhile, feeling safe enough to pick up the upper left-hand position, and he does have a huge presence across the map. He's pumping out troops like crazy. Has vultures out there now with mines, spotting everything out, being annoying, making sure the reinforcements can't come cleanly to support. Lurkers being caught in position by Marines. Scans go off, so all those lurkers die. And Fantasy in absolute and total control. I thought he was in trouble early on after some nice harassment by Hyuk showing not the best of Defiler play. Should have sailed out and wear significantly longer. Went very quick hive. Got his expos up late. I believe he should have instead just stayed on Lair, gotten that lower right-hand main as he did, and just staying on Lair meanwhile. And then transition into hive as he went for his 4th base. And then at this point in the game, maybe he would have had some Ultras out there, and maybe some Defilers to support. He would have had overall a better army to face against this, but he just doesn't have the force right now. Fantasy, I think, only less than a minute away from getting Hyuk to GG. That huge tank force with no upgrades, but still doing so much damage. Hyuk trying to regain that base at the lower right-hand natural. Not going to happen. Fantasy just controlling this base. Hyuk can't do anything. No moves from him to do any damage to Fantasy at this point. Fantasy can be able to get his 4th going, and he's just ripping everything to pieces. Hyuk has even lost his control. This is what I've said. He tends, when he's in a bad position, Hyuk starts to make bad mistakes, tends to panic, and despite an early advantage, he really hasn't managed to come through with it. Gets a plague off that hits almost nothing. So overall, bad position. Now going to get penetrated, and that sounded bad. But yeah, GG from Hyuk. That upper right hand, his natural and main at this entire game, not even threatened at all. Fantasy just focused his efforts on what was close by in the lower right hand and won the game that way. Nice victory. Despite some early harassment, went right back in there, played his standard play, and won. So disappointing play here from Hyuk. He's going to be 1-0 under. GG guys, ranching, not assisting. Hope you enjoyed. More coming on.